And the reason I'm very passionate about passive income is because at House of Wealth, our vision is a financially free Uganda. Now, you cannot be financially free, what we call financial freedom, when you do not have things bringing in income without your actual involvement. Ebintu ebireeta ssente nga tobyenyigiddemu nnyo. Vision gye tulina eyogamba nti omuntu alina kubeera financially free, obwetwaze mu byenfuna. It requires you to be earning things. It could be daily, it could be weekly, it could be monthly, buli lunaku, buli wiiki, buli mwezi, buli luvannyuma lwa myezi esatu. But the idea is when you are not involved like 100%. And you could ask yourself whether it actually can make sense to you by asking yourself another question. What would happen to your current status, to your current family, to your current loved ones, if a mishap, like an accident, happened to you and you do not die, but you're going to be home for a prolonged period of time without actively going to this workplace? What would really happen? That's where passive income answers the question. If you become maimed, if you become incapacitated, passive income answers the question. If you become retired, what would really happen if you become retired? Passive income answers the questions. So I've told you that 90% of Ugandans will never retire comfortably. And it's not because they earn enough. They do not earn enough, but it's because they do not know how to make money work without them. And this evening, we are going to rewrite that story. That's the reason why I set up the space. We are going to rewrite that story that you will learn. We are going to pick learnings from the Bible, learnings from the Quran, learnings from philosophers, learnings from practical Ugandan examples. By the time we combine all those, you, my friend who is on this space, you should be able to find your way around. And remember, you do not have to feel bad yet that they are talking income, but I'm still in school. They are talking income, but I've not even started. I do not have any job. The idea is when you have the knowledge, the opportunity will coincide with the knowledge at a moment T in the future. Think about learning how to drive before you actually buy a car. When you buy a car later, you just drive the car. When they give you a car as a gift, you just drive the car. So people organize themselves. We need to fall into a thought process where we organize ourselves in the now to face the future. That's why you see Solomon is saying that the wise among the wisest is the ant, because the ant stores food today in preparation of the winter, which is to come in the future. So the learning is you do not have to wait till they tell you there is an opportunity to go abroad to get a passport. Chase the passport now. Have the passport. Chase the permit now. Have the permit. Chase a skill now. Have the skill. Such that when the opportunity comes, others will be like, I don't have a passport. And they will miss out and they will say, I'm unlucky. Yet you who organized earlier, you will seem like the lucky one yet opportunity is coinciding with the preparation. When preparation coincides with opportunity, very many will look at it as luck. So wherever you are, whether you're in Uganda, whether you're abroad, these are some of the 5 faces, the faces of wealth. Obugagga bulina face nga bw'onoga nti when you see me on a picture, you say Newton wuuyo. Every one of us here, if you see, unless you are a twin, you have a face. And it's that face they can recognize you, that this is Mandela, this is Gloria, this is Sechewa, this is Masereka, this is Morgan, this is Kwikiriza, this is Charles, this is Sandy, this is Marvin, this is Dinton, this is Brian, this is Zainab, this is Barasa, this is Mpuga, this is Givens, this is Paul, this is Ruboa, this is Ziwa Ayub. You have a face. So even wealth, as we know it, has a face. Now I'm going to give you the 5 faces. And when you see the 5 faces, you'll be recognizing and saying, I think that's the kind of wealth I ascribe to. Obugagga tugenda buwa a face gye tugulabirako, where you can say, I think this is the face, this is the face. For example, very many of us, the only wealth knowledge we gather is from books. So you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you've read Richest Man in Babylon, you've read Why We Want You to Be Rich, you've read Who Took My Cheese, The Art of a Deal, you've read Guide to Investing, you've read all these, Napoleon Hill's, Stephen Covey, you've read all these books. But people like Kiyosaki and all the other people you read about in the books, this is the kind of face they give us for wealth. For example, Kiyosaki will tell you that wealth is the number of years you can live without working while maintaining your standard of living. So the people who are in self-help, the people writing books telling us about money, many of them gather this wealth first. This is the wealth first they paint for us. That wealth is the number of years you can live without working while maintaining your standard of living. If we are to translate that in Luganda, it would be nti kye bayita obugagga gy'emyaka gy'oyinza okubeerawo nga tokola kyokka nga otambuza obulamu bwo obwa bulijjo. You maintain your standard of living. For example, how do you know your standard of living? Your standard of living has to be calculated in expenses. So you wake up and say that my expenditure for a month is 2 million. That's your expenditure for a month. So if your expenditure for a month is 2 million, Kiyosaki is saying that what wealth is the number of years you will be living spending that 2 million per month when you're not actually working. So we can try to break it down further. So imagine you retire, or imagine you lose a relative, God forbid, a parent, you lose a parent, and they give you all this money as a musika, you're the heir to the estate of your parent. And you find that your late parent left 200 million on their account. You are the only child, your parent left 200 million. So if you decide not to work, sigenda kukola, the 200 million in Kiyosaki terms, if you want to know how wealthy you are, you will divide the 200 million by 2 million, which you spend a month, and you will get 100 months. So if you get 100 months, you divide 100 months by 12. It follows that you are wealthy if you have 200 million, which your parent left in the will, and that money is on the account. That's 200 million, and you have an expenditure per month of 2 million. If you chose not to work, you will only survive for 8.3 years. So 8.3 years, milioni bibiri, 200 million will be done. You will be done. So that's why it is important to ask yourself, how then can I create this money that keeps on coming as I also stay alive? Because remember, when you have the 200 million and you're spending 2 million per month, and that 2 million is your expenditure and the 200 is the money on the account, and you say, I'm no longer working. So you wake up, you jog, you play with your kids, you go to church, you do gym, you go to sauna. You will only be in that lifestyle or standard of living for 8.5 years. Then you will have to resume work. That's why passive income is very important. And that's why you realize that is the very first phase. I want you to give me, I want you to click on any emoji if you've understood the very first phase. The first phase of wealth. If you've understood it, I want you to click on any emoji. Are we there? Are our phones really having emojis? I want you to click on any emoji if you've understood the first phase of wealth, because I have to make sure I'm moving with you. So now that majority have really, so the first phase is when you're thinking that I need that passive income where I can live all this number of years without working. That's why you see very many people who follow the phase of wealth of Kiyosaki, they go into rentals. They go into rentals such that they make sure the rentals pay for their standard of living, and they live without working while maintaining the standard of living. The second phase of wealth, we are going to pick it from a philosopher. While doing my research, I read through very many philosophers, and I found a very interesting philosopher called Epictetus. So Epictetus, as a philosopher, this is the face he puts on wealth. He says, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Nti obugagga tebuva mu kubeera na bintu bingi, amamotoka amangi, ettaka eringi, amayumba amangi, abakyala abangi. Wealth is not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Nti obeera n'ebyoyagala nga bitono. Obeera n'ebyoyagala nga bitono. You have few wants. You know, you can actually be wealthy when you have few wants. You do not want very many cars, you have your one car. You do not want very many houses, you have your one house. You do not want very many women, you have your one woman. You do not want very many kids, you have your one or two kids. You have your one or two plots. Notandika living mu bulamu obwo nga gwe bw'ojjamu emirembe. That's where you find your comfort, by not having very many great possessions, but in few wants. So I want you to to envisage what this philosopher Epictetus is saying. He's saying that wealth is also internal. For him, he thinks that you can have billions but still be poor if your appetite for more is endless. You see how he's building it? He's saying it does not matter as long as you have a lot of wants. Even a billion won't be enough. Ojabeera n'akawumbi naye ng'oyagala obuwumbi 1,000. So obeera mwavu internally. For us, we see you, we think you're happy, but you are actually not happy because you have very many wants. Now, the scenario we can give for people who can follow Epictetus's face of wealth, you think about a retired teacher who is probably in Fort Portal. She has her home, she grows her food, she sells her coffee to any cooperative, and she lives in peace without massive income. She chose peace. Now, very many of you on this space, you might choose that as peace. You might choose wealth as peace, where you're like, this is the face of wealth. So if that is your face of wealth, I want to promise you, it is okay. Do not be swayed into the other faces of wealth where you want all these other things. So this could be your face of wealth. At the end, when I define I paint a picture for all the 5 faces, we shall try to harmonize. And on the top of the hour, you do not have to worry. When I'm done with an hour, I'll open up for 30 minutes where you'll be asking questions such that we clarify, because every time I talk, I change a mindset. Now, a mindset change requires you to ask and get answers. So that is the philosopher's lens. So we've started with Kiyosaki, which is all these books we read, but I've also opened up a philosopher. Click on any emoji if you feel you've also understood that face of wealth, the philosopher's lens, how this philosopher sees wealth and that particular face. Click on any emoji and I go into another face. All right. So the third lens is the economist's lens. Economists also see money differently. Economists, we are going to go to the grandfather of economics called Adam Smith. So Adam Smith, for him, is saying wealth is the annual produce of the land and labor of society. Nti obugagga byebyo byonna ebintu ebivudde mu ngeri gye tukozesezaamu ettaka n'emirimu gy'abantu mu kitundu ekyo. The annual produce, if we collect all the annual produce of the land, tusimbye kasooli ku ttaka tufunyemu kilo meka, how many kilos have we harvested? How many kilos of maize have we harvested from all the acres? And how many people did we get to work as labor? So Adam Smith, for him, he puts a face of wealth and he says that wealth is productive capacity. So when it comes to personal finance, it means you have assets, but we have to ask yourself, what have they produced? What have they produced? It is not enough for you to just have land. What has the land produced? It's not enough for you to just have a car. What has the car produced? What has the computer produced? What has the vehicle produced? It is not enough to have cattle. You're rearing cattle. How many liters of milk have the cattle produced. So the idea, economists, for them, when they see wealth, the first they put on it is production. And that's why you see we have very many people who have acres and acres of land, but they are not digging on the land. They are not producing anything on the land. They are not rearing anything on the land. And even they are not renting it out to have money come in from tenants who can get a lease on the land. So if an economist is looking at wealth, for him the idea is production. Kiki ky'okozesezza ekyo ky'olina. You cannot say that I have a Sinotrack ng'eparkinze mu luggya. You must ask yourself, how many trips of sand has this Sinotrack done? You bought a car for Uber. How many days is this car utilized? You are a doctor and you are a dentist. You have these chairs where we come and we sit and you look through our mouths and all that. How many people sit on that chair? You are a lab technician. How many people have you tested for their blood and put below that microscope? So the face of wealth built by economists is to do with produce. It's to do with produce. So the example we can give, for example, a fish farmer. You can think about a fish farmer who lives near Lake Victoria, and they have put up cages. So after initial setup of cages, it's the lake to do the work. The fish will reproduce and reproduce and reproduce and reproduce. And after 6 months, they come to harvest and sell the fish to restaurants and exporters. So it is not a matter of saying, I bought cages from China and I put them on Lake Victoria. If we are dealing in economics, we shall ask you, how many fish do you get from the cages? Remember, we are using all these faces to be able for you to understand wealth such that you can build wealth and ultimately passive income. So I want you to click on any emoji if you feel you've actually understood the face of wealth from an economist's point of view. Newton Buteraba House of Wealth. If you've just joined, we are discussing passive income, and we've started by trying to understand the different faces of wealth. The different faces of wealth. Very many people, when they're teaching about money, they just take you on without preparing you. So I chose that you first understand the wealth, such that you would actually choose and you say, at least I understand something called wealth and I can approach it like this. So I'm happy to know that you are all here. Let's continue. So when we go to the Bible is an encyclopedia for life as we know it, at least for the believers from the Abrahamic religions. But in the Bible, if you read Deuteronomy 8, verse 8, Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, they say that, remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. So from a biblical point of view, for the believers, all wealth comes from God. It is He who gives the ability to produce wealth. So for you, you are there, then God must give you the ability to produce wealth. That's what the Bible teaches in Deuteronomy 8:18. Now, you must now look at it from the scripture point of view, that wealth is a trust from God. and producing, it is stewardship. The wealth you're going to have, if you're going to follow a biblical point of view, it will be like they have given it to you. God enables you to have it. I think you can follow up this verse with 1 Corinthians 4:7, where they're saying, who amongst you has anything that you were not given? And if you try to do an exegesis on that verse, you realize they are actually correct. Everything we have, we were given. If you have nice hair, probably it is a gene of your mother or your father or your great-grandmother who gave you that. If you have a lot of money, it's probably your customers. If you have a car, it's probably a car manufacturer who designed, or a car seller who gave you the car after you gave them the money. So everything we have, from the nice nails to the nice hair to your good voice to everything, we were given. So that is how the biblical point of view looks at it, that every money you will have, every wealth you will have, you are holding it in trust. The friends here who understand law know that when you're holding something in trust, it is not yours. You're holding it on someone's behalf. That's why you see people start saying, Mukama yagaba ate yajjawo. Eyo belief eva mu kukkiriza Bayibuli nti Mukama yatuwa obugagga, yatuwa amaanyi, obusobozi obukola obugagga. Is the one who gives us the ability to do the wealth. Now, that's why you see, we shall now think about the people who are gifted. You can be gifted as a singer. Now, when you're gifted as a singer and you record an album, and then you start earning what in law we call intellectual property. So people start paying you royalties for using the copyright to your music. Of course, in Uganda, we do not have IP to that level where people are earning. But if you follow in Europe, North America, and Asia, you realize that actually people are earning a lot from their inventions, from their creations. They are earning immense from copyright. So those gifts they have had, a gift on how to sing, a gift on how to dance, a gift on how to speak, they're earning a lot. So that's the biblical lens. And the final lens is the Quranic lens. So I also had to read from the Quran to try to understand how would the Muslims perceive wealth. Now, in Islam, if you read chapter 63, verse 10, in Quran, you realize that they're saying, and spend from what we have provided you before death comes to one of you, and you say, my Lord, if only you would delay me for a short time, so I would give charity. So, you realize that even in Quran, they are saying that whatever you have, we have provided you. And they are asking you that you spend it wisely before death comes to you. Because if death comes to you and you've not spent it wisely, then you might cry and say, Lord, please help me stay for longer. So, in Islam, they also carry the same notion that wealth is given to you as a trust. And it is supposed to help you benefit others. That's why you see we have Sadaqah, Jariyah. Now, the example we can use is, think about a Muslim businessman in Bali who builds maybe a commercial property, and he dedicates a share of the rent to fund the needy. That is a requirement, and that's how they see it in Islam, that every wealth you are to do, you must start setting a portion to help the needy. With now all those 5 phases of wealth, we can realize that from Kiyosaki, or Kiyosaki represents all the people who write books for us, years of freedom without work. That is the notion from Kiyosaki. You must look at wealth as years of freedom without work. In other words, they are asking you to build cash flow. So the people who write books, self-help books, are asking us to build cash flow. So you build cash flow such that money starts coming in passively. When we go to people who are philosophers, they are telling us, be free from wanting, freedom from want. So, in other words, they are pushing us to cut unnecessary desires. To cut unnecessary desires. Now, when we follow economists want us to produce to capacity. If you have a talent, if you have a resource, you must produce to capacity. You can't have 50 acres of land and you only grow maize on 1 acre. An economist would require you or want you to produce to capacity or to own assets that produce. You don't just buy land for the sake of buying. You buy land with an idea of what will I do with this land? This is a growing town, I'll build rentals. This is a growing town. You see, there is a school, I will build a hostel. So economists are pushing us to own producing assets. When we go to the Bible, they are pushing us to stewardship. You multiply what you're entrusted with. God gives you, you multiply, which is also picked from the parable of talents when you read Matthew 25, 14 to 30. But when you go to the Quran, we are asking you to create streams that bless beyond you. In Islam, you've been called to create streams that bless beyond you. That's why you see they're asking people to do charity and all these requirements. Now, I want to share with you, I've given you the definition of passive income, where you work without actively being involved. Now, I want to share with you what I've realized in Uganda are the mistakes people do when they get on the journey to start engaging into ventures to come up with passive income. The very first mistake I've seen in Uganda, and I think it's common with us as human beings, we confuse passive with effortless. We confuse passive with effortless. I want you to note that passive does not mean effortless. So, every lasting passive income stream demands initial sweat, equity, planning, and oversight. Ugandans, friends, let's stop confusing passive with effortless. The Bible in Proverbs 14, verse 23, it says, "In all toil there is profit, but mere talk ends only to poverty." In all toil. In other words, there is a way they are calling us to run, to toil for profit. If you read the Quran, you read, I think it's Surat An-Najim. Surat An-Najim is chapter 53. If you read ayat 39, they will tell you that And there is not for man except that for which he strives. Even this verse in the Holy Quran is pushing us to strive. Now, I want to tell you that in Uganda, when they talk about passive income, we think we will start up something and leave it. Omunnayuganda alina omulimu, akola ssente ze, kasita awulira ku speaker yenna, financial literacy speaker, n'amugamba funayo ka business ebbali. When they buy boda, when they buy a car for Uber, when they build rentals, when they start up mobile money kiosks, when they start up everything they start up, they let it run in auto mode. It is a grave mistake that kills all the money. Passive does not mean effortless. You will still run some element of effort, though minimal, but you will still run some element of effort. Let me give you an example. Because I'm into real estate and I have built rentals, and I have property which is in rentals. Let me give you an example. I have buildings, but there is this particular building where I have very good tenants that I do not, because currently I'm busy with studies. I can take some very good time without actually going to see what is happening at the property. But this particular building, there is something I realized. National Water was sending me bills for the different apartments for me to pay. So my client's parent, they pay their own electricity. I charge them for garbage, but I had not because all the meters are in my name. When National Water sends the bill, it sends the bill of water to me. Now, the bills kept on coming, and I would call up the tenants and say, you are in house number 5, your bill is this amount. And sometimes the tenants would complain and they say, but I have not been around. I've not been around this month. How is that bill like that? And then I started to look out for what is really happening. And this is what I realized, that if I had a bill, there was a time I had 2 unoccupied units, but the water bills kept on coming. And one time I went to investigate, and this is what I realized, that my askari would have people sleep in these units when a tenant leaves. And that's why water bills would still even run, even though the units were unoccupied. So I want you to realize from that scenario that having a rental apartment, it will bring passive income, yes, but it does not mean you won't put in effort to investigate to make sure everything is running. Otherwise, you find yourself that the money you collect pays taxes, pays the workers, and you are always maintaining the property. So in other words, because you confused passiveness with effortlessness, you won't gain anything. The second mistake is chasing high returns without understanding the risk. Chasing high returns without understanding the risk. It's only in this country, perhaps even in other countries, where people join side businesses to get passive income without putting in any effort to understand what is the risk. What is the risk? People buy land in this country without even asking whether the land is private milo, freehold, lease, or even customary. So after they buy the land, and then the landlord comes to take over the building, and then that's when they realize that they were having a lease, and it has just expired. You will have to invest in either doing your personal research or ensuring you get to know some of these things. The Bible in Proverbs 21 verse 5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." Would you believe that, I think it was yesterday but one, there is a network marketing company called MYD. They closed it, but it had stretched into like 2 million Ugandans who had put in the money. When I called some of the people who had lost the money, I kept on asking, do you know the people who actually ran MYD? And they were saying no. Do you know their offices? They say, their offices, they took off. So you need to know that human beings, as a weakness, we've been designed as a weakness. It's inherent, it's intrinsic in us that we've been designed to want shortcuts. If you can fight shortcuts, you are on the road to being wealthy. We want shortcuts like nothing. We want to have 1 million today and put it somewhere and it produces 2 million. When they tell us that you get that 1 million and have that 1 million produce 50,000 a month, which is 5%, you are like, eyo muli babbi, nze nina wenteeka akakadde ne kampa emitwalo 3. That's what we want to hear. But it's a natural weakness. Twagala ebyamangu, tetwebuuza. And you could go on and on. You could think, tekyatandise jjo. This has been on since Adam days. Imagine Adam was created last. He wasn't even created by a single God. Adam was created by multiple gods, because the Bible verse says, let's create man in our image. Our image. When God was creating goats, he was creating them alone. When God was creating mangoes, he created them alone. But the moment God reached man on the 6th day, he said, let's create man in our. And even after creating Adam, Adam wasn't happy, and God again gave him what he wanted. He gave him fruits, gave him food, gave him flowers. He wasn't happy until he had to create a woman for him. So imagine a guy gives you a garden. A guy gives you a garden, a guy gives you a woman, and he tells you, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil do not touch. Adam touched. So we have that weakness that we can come in close contact with the money. But because we want haste, twagalirawo kagwirawo, nze mpaamu sente zange kati, we are bound to fail. You must know that if you're going to be wealthy, you take on the calmness approach. Ojakasobo, wealth is in slow motion, is built in slow motion. Mpola, ojakasobo. So, chasing returns without understanding the risks. So that's why you see every time we had capital chicken, Ugandans lost money in capital chicken. But they jumped from capital chicken and the same people joined MYD. Those things of you find 2, find 3, find 10. If you have 10, you get more money. If you find, you get more money. It works for only those who have just entered. All these people who join later, because the system is faulty at hello, it just dies, and it dies when you're the one who has just entered. So the other mistake we make when we try to pursue any side hustle or passive income is we underestimate startup and maintenance costs. Startup and maintenance costs. And that's very well written in, you read Luke 14:28, where Jesus is saying, who amongst you who intends to build a tower, but you do not start by first sitting down to know the cost. Everything you are going to run as a side hustle has a startup and a maintenance cost hidden. Take your time. Take your time to know the maintenance cost. When you get to know the maintenance cost, it will give you a chance to know whether you will actually handle. Very many of us have started businesses, and I will be mentioning them. Airbnb. You have an extra room, you rent it out. Airbnb. Passive income. You find an apartment, you pay, and you start Airbnb. Now, when you start Airbnb, the photos of the Airbnb look great, but you did not budget for linen replacements, extra electricity bills. You did not budget for season dips. There are going to be seasons where people are not using Airbnbs. And there are going to be seasons where Airbnbs are full. But there are going to be seasons where they are actually running on the low. And no one is calling you or getting into your property. But you have to pay the rent. For you, when you are doing your calculations, you are like, this month they will come, next month they will come, the other 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 month. So you have all your months running through. Yet, life has been designed that there will actually be months when there is no activity. When there is no activity, and you'll be paying rent. Now, if you did not balance that, did you actually know that currently people hire out, people come into Airbnbs? For example, let's say you charge 100,000 per day. The guy comes, pays 100,000, enters the Airbnb, monitors, studies, and realizes the place is not secure enough. Asobola okutuma asikaliwo n'amutuma ebintu ku dduuka n'atikka ebintu byonna bye mulina mu Airbnb n'abitwala. He comes with a car, he parks it, then he asks the askari, nyinza ogula ku n'ayogera, asobola okwogera, he can mention any type of medicine. Is there a pharmacy nearby? Is there a pharmacy nearby? And the askari says, the pharmacy I know is somewhere there. You have to go and slope. And he says, I have a stomach issue. So he gives the askari 50K. And he tells the askari that the medicine is for 30, 20K is for you to help me. The askari will leave his post. So the askari moves to the pharmacy. This guy has already a vehicle. He puts in everything that can move. He puts in the TV. He puts in the woofer. He puts in the microwave. He puts in the linen. Puts in the bed cover. He goes. So he hired the Airbnb for 100K. He has spent 50K on misdirecting the askari, which is total 150. But the things he has taken are worth 3 million shillings. If he did that for 5 Airbnbs, he has stolen approximately 15 million. So do not underestimate startup and maintenance costs. The other thing we do is we lack financial literacy. We lack financial literacy. Financial literacy is your ability to pick up and get to know, how do these things work? You know that in the Bible, they keep on talking about ignorance and ignorance. If you read Luke 23:34, Jesus is even on the cross and he's saying, forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they are doing. When you read John 4, verse 4, I think to like 42, he's at the well with a woman and he's asking for water from the woman. And the woman is saying, I'm not supposed to give you water. And Jesus is saying, if you knew who is asking for the water. Hosea 4:6, my people are perishing for lack of knowledge. So get to know about these things. You can't start a rental business and you do not know that rentals, if you own rentals, you must pay rental income tax as an individual or as a company. For you just own rentals. You tell people you own rentals. You told people you own rentals. The moment URA comes and he says, but this building has been around for 5 years, you've been making money, they will assess you and ask you for 500 million. And then URA will use third-party notices and ask tenants to be paying URA direct. So you will own the building, but you won't be the landlord earning the money because you failed to get people around you who understand these things. So you did not bother to know about rental income tax. You do not bother. So your passive income comes and evaporates with an ugly demand notice. So there are very many, there are over 10 mistakes we make in our pursuit for passive income. And before I open the questions, I want to, before I open the questions too, I think we can start writing the questions. Those who can write, those who can't write, they will actually request to ask their question, and then I'll listen to it and I'll note it down. But as we go to the questions, I want to use like 5 minutes, a few minutes, to share with you avenues where I would think you might start giving consideration to venture into passively. During the whole entire talk, I've talked about rentals. So you can build, if you have your money, you can build apartments, you can build units such that you have rental income. Rental income comes in as you do your work. That is passive income. If you do not have rentals, if you do not have money to build, then you can find people who have already built. If you find people who have already built, then you can go into a model of Airbnb, such that you work on your rooms and then you list a room or two. It could be in someone's apartment, or it could be your own house where you realize that you have a free room which you can give to Airbnb. You can go into, those are two. You can go into the third, which is you can go into unit trusts. So unit trusts, as you hear the word, it's a unit. A fund manager collects money as a single unit for investors and invests the money on the investor's behalf. That's why you see it's called a unit trust. A trust is a legal term to hold money on other people's behalf. So you can buy, you can find a unit trust and you put the money there. It will also bring you some little, but at least it will be a side income. You could also choose to buy shares. You could buy shares from a company, whether it's a public company or private company. You can buy shares such that every end of the year they declare dividends. When they declare dividends, you're earning passively. You're earning passively. Remember, the goal was to make sure we earn something which is not our main job. So you earn passively. The other side income you could think about that would bring in passive income is social media. There are very many people who are earning from making videos that go viral on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, on all these platforms. So you could have all these things. You could be great at baking, and you start baking lessons. When you start baking lessons, you can choose to charge people to subscribe to the lessons such that you are doing your work, but the people who are buying the lessons are giving you some money. The other option would be to lend money to a successful business at the lowest interest rate. Remember, the successful businesses we have in this country, are always short of cash. They struggle with cash flows. They struggle with paying rent, paying employees, paying taxes, paying maintenance costs, paying suppliers. So you could find that if you have a friend who is running a successful business, you could ask him, bwenkuwa akakadde onteeramu mmeka? Ayinza okugamba bw'ompa akakadde nkuteeramu emitwalo 10, oba bw'ompa akakadde nkuteeramu emitwalo 5. If you give me 1 million, I'll put in give me 1 million Ugandan shillings, I'll give you 50,000 Ugandan shillings. So if you have people who are like that, and you realize they're serious, they're honest, they're hardworking, and you can give them your money. You invest little by little with them. Imagine giving 5 different people your money and they keep on giving you little. For example, if I have 5 million and I find a guy, I realize he has been running his Rolex stall. He has a Rolex stand. He has been running it for 3 years. And I ask him, if I gave you 500,000, how much would you give me? And he says, if you give me 500,000, I'll give you 40,000 every month. And I find another business, and you realize I go on distributing my 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, and each 1 million is giving me 50K. These 5 people will end up giving me 250,000 out of the 5 million. But do not fall for the trap where you do not have what we call legal clarity with the people whom you're going to engage in by lending them money. You see, in Uganda, we struggle with trust. For us, we think if we go to church with someone, if they're our neighbor, let us just trust them. You've never done business with them, but then you trust them with a lot of money. So what actually that does is, if the business goes awry, which would mean if the business goes south or everything goes berserk, this person will start now looking for the legal defense by saying, where did we write? It wasn't that money. It wasn't that much. That's not the interest we agreed. So become an individual who can document when happiness still subsists. If your friend is still happy and you're still happy, get a pen and paper, 1 pager, and you say, me, Sesanga, I have agreed with Julie. Julie runs a clothing shop. I've given her 1 million. She'll be giving me 50,000 every month. And we shall be renewing this agreement every year. She signs, you sign, you do a photocopy. She even just takes a picture. You move on. That one particular document is what will help you. You imagine giving your friend 100 million, 50 million, and then they tell you that they are dead. How will you convince the family that you gave this individual 100 million? And which family member will be that honest to go withdraw that money that you gave the late, such that they repay you? So lend to successful businesses, identify successful businesses and start discussing them, how much you can give them such that they put in some interest. The other one is you could buy land and allow the land to make capital gains. So with that being said, I'm going to invite I think a speaker. All right, you give me your name. You give me your name and probably you ask a question, which I will be able to answer. Thank you very much. Anoni, your sound is on. Is she speaking? Okay, I think she's not speaking. Let me see whether I see another request here. Morgan. Morgan, you can speak. Can you hear me? Please unmute yourself, Morgan. Yes. Yes, you're very loud and clear. Okay. Morgan, your network is blurry. Morgan, we are struggling with your network. Initially, you were very loud and clear, but now we are struggling. Morgan, can you hear me? We can't hear you for now. So let's hear from let's hear from Mark Anthony. Yes, Mark. Your voice is a bit low. I think you could try to raise your voice. Raise the voice. You're getting there. We can't hear you. Are you speaking through headsets? We can't hear you. Sorry. Hello. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. All right. I've had to mute everyone because I think I'm struggling with we are struggling with the network. I don't know whether people were hearing me very well, but from their end, we were not hearing them very well. Let's hear from Motebi. The people who have not been able to speak, kindly you can type your question. I will read it and I'll try to answer it. Motebi, we are waiting to hear from you. Please unmute and speak. So as we wait on Mr. Mtebi, Mr. Mtebi, speak to us. I can hear you loud and clear. Please ask your question. Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay. Very, very brilliant question. Very brilliant question. And this is the insight I have to share, Mr. Mtebi. What you need to realize that all of us were not created by God with an ability to run something called a business. Not all of us can run businesses. The entrepreneurial skill, the entrepreneurial requirement that comes with business, it's not a cup of tea for all of us. Many of us, I want you to look at a typical entrepreneur. A typical entrepreneur must look at the 5 pillars of business. The first pillar is strategy. The second pillar is operations. The third pillar is marketing. The fourth pillar is finance. The fifth pillar is human resource. Now, that's why you see when entrepreneurs start a business, they are the ones doing everything. They are the ones to hire, they are the ones to market, they are the ones to handle money, they are the ones to negotiate, they are the ones to argue with the landlord. So, not all of us have been built with that skill set. Notice that when you were starting with this question, you said, we started an investment company. So, what I realized that I have to help you with is the ability to help you differentiate a business from an investment. You see, a business operates, how do you know that you have a business? Only three things run for you to realize that you have a business. You need delegation. You need systemization. You need automation. So what is to delegate? From the Latin word delegare, is to hand over power. When you start a business, you hand over power. I want to give you a model. For example, you see a bank. All of us here have banks where we save money, where we keep money, but we do not know who owns the bank. We do not even have the number for the bank owner. We have no WhatsApp for the bank owner. We do not even plan and intend to meet the bank owner. And yet, we keep our money with that bank. Why is it so? Because the bank owner delegated, handed over power to people who call themselves managing directors, IT, security, bank teller. The power has been already handed over. When the power is handed over, the bank owner systemized. He gave them a way on how they should handle the business. For example, when you enter a bank, they first check you. They frisk you and check that you're not going to enter with a gun or anything. And when you're going to pick your money, there is a form you fill, there is where you sign. These days, they even use biometric. And now every teller has a computer. So the computer automates. The security checking you is a system on how to admit people into a bank. They have a system that they open at 8, close at 5, and they have delegated power. Whereas an investment, for example, if you look at a unit trust, I get my 100 million, I hand it over to a unit trust. The only thing I want to see is an update that this month you've made your 1% in treasury bills or bonds. So I want now to take it back to your context. The friends you have, the first 3 out of 10 who are always involved, you could find that internally they have this nuance, they have this knack, they have this ability to take on entrepreneurial hurdles and headaches and all that. The other people who are the 7, you could find they are more reserved. They can hand over the money, but they are not, they do not carry the interest of really engaging. So it goes back to the leadership. So what the leadership can do, the leadership can now start talking into people and saying, we are going to start reserving money for paying individuals whom we shall delegate the power. For example, if Mr. Mtevi, you and your friends buy a block of flats in Nigeria, and then you tell your friends that every Sunday we need 2 people to go and check on the tenants. And then you realize that these people cannot check on the tenants. They do not want to go when they tell them there is a leakage. They do not want to go and check on the building. So you tell them, you know what? Because you have more investing ability than business ability, let's start putting money aside such that we hire a manager. Or when we don't hire a manager, let's go into a company which would be property managing for us. Now that way, it will endeavor, they contribute the money, but they are not going to cause all these friction, the friction you will have in the whole entire setup. You start asking them for some money for the people whom you will hire to do the work. Or you start telling them that this is what we earned, but what we earned, we've deducted salaries for people who can do the work. I hope that tries to answer part of your question. I want now to call upon Mr. Matovu. Mr. Matovu, I want you to ask your question such that I can try to share with an answer. Would it? Yes. You're welcome, sir. Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Matov. This is a very pertinent question for this conversation. There is something I got to know in my journey into real estate. What I realized that is that it's when you want to build rentals, the very greatest mistake we make as Ugandans is to start by looking for the land. I think, in my view, that's not how we should have started. We should start. If you want to invest in rentals, you start by going to the area and inquiring about the rental prices in the area. So, think about it. Very many people have bought land. You find someone has bought land in Gayaza, Chiwenda. I had an estate there, so I can tell you that right now a plot in Gayaza, Chiwenda probably would go from 25 to 40 million. Now, just because you have a plot in Gayaza, Chiwenda, which you bought 25 to 40 million, then you start setting up apartments. If you are to build a block of apartments, which is like, let's say, 3 floors, it would cost you approximately, let's say, 700 million by the time you're done with it. Very nice. But you realize rent in Chiwenda, Gayaza area won't be 700,000 per month for a single bedroom. Now remember, for us in Chanja, in Chiwature, in Nigeria, we have the ability to ask for rent of a 1-bedroom house and we charge 1 million. You will use the same amount of money in building in Gaza, but for you, you won't be able to charge 1 million for a 1-bedroom house. So the trick is, if you want to go to rentals, don't start by buying land. You go in the area and you ask around, how much do people pay in rent? You start by being as if you're going to be a tenant. You enter a house, you see it's 1 room, the finishings and all that, and then you note and you realize, okay, this area, the rent is 400K maximum. So even if I invest a lot of money, it will take me long to recover because the rent in this area is strictly low. Now, to go back to what you were saying, that salaries are not going, salaries are constant and people are now unable to afford rent. Usually it comes from a point of view where in the area you are, that is the price expected. For example, people in Muyenga will ask for, let's say 1.2 million for a single bedroom. If you try to ask for the same elsewhere, you won't get that money. But what I want to promise you is the beauty with construction The moment you have the house, and the moment you have the house and the people do not occupy it, if you did not build it using loans and you used your little income as you grew your portfolio, you do not have to be under any form of pressure, because this country still lacks capacity to handle all the housing. Kampala alone, if you read the housing reports, they will tell you that Kampala alone still has a deficit of approximately 400 units, 400,000 units of housing. So the idea is people who have built, they should be looking on targeting. First of all, you target the area. You target the area and you say, this area, people are low income earners. If people are low income earners, I want to raise a flat. Let me build a single level such that I do not overinvest money until the area grows. So you come slowly, you build on the single level and you do not overinvest money. If you go to an area and they tell you this is the middle class, and the middle class in Uganda is, it starts from Bukoto, Ntinda, Chiwatule, Najera, Naria, Chisasi, Kungu, Chanja. Those are the areas where when you go for rent, you know occupancy will at least be assured, because in real estate, some will be leaving while others are joining. A tenant leaves, another joins. So for salaries being constant and rent increasing, I would advise you to just increase the rent just for just. Make sure you've done a survey of the average rentals, the average. Everything is about the rental charges of an area before you even build, before you even increase rent, before you even think of investing money. I hope, Mr. Matov, that submission tries to, in a way, to answer your question. Mr. Matov, does it? Thank you very much. Mr. Busobozi Karyebara, can you talk to me, sir? Mr. Busobozi. Is he on? So after Mr. Busobozi, I'll hear from, I have Kadu, then after Kadu, I'll hear from the men's hub. Mr. Busobozi Karyebara, are you there? Yes, Mr. Busobozi. B2K Investments. Mr. Busobozi, please speak. All right, so Mr. Busobozi has unmuted, but he won't speak. Let's hear from Mr. Kadu. Please unmute and ask your question. Yes, Kadu. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. That's my mother tongue. Uh, uh, Esero. Ettaka lya eka meka? Okay. 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 Hey, okay. Okay, let me ask you a question. Or alabirira kasoli, the person keeping the land, who is planting their maize, mumuwa sente meka? Mumusasula buli mwezi? Hey, okay. Okay, okay, okay. Now, I'm going to translate your question to all the listeners who are not very well conversant with the language. So Mr. Kadu here says he has 5 friends. They are in the diaspora and they have 1 acre of land. They have planted trees as a project. They've also doing some maize. One of them has their mother looking after the project while in Uganda, and he would like to know how probably they can succeed with the project. The answer, kyenjagala okuddamu, what I would like to tell you is, okay, thank you. What I would like to tell you is, we have no business running so far. What you are doing there to put trees is to protect the land, which is actually a very good thing. But that is not something I would think you will be looking at as a project. I never advise people in the diaspora to run any single business while away. That has been my message from the word go. I will still maintain it. I will die on this hill. When you are abroad, I never encourage you to run any business, probably in Uganda. And it's because of the challenges, because of the things you will meet. So while you are abroad, the encouragement I usually give is keep buying land. Keep buying land, keep buying land, keep buying land. When you return to Uganda, sell part of the land, get in touch with the capital, and you go into a full throttle for a business. For example, you should ask yourself, if you planted maize on 1 acre of land, how many, the question will be, are you going to plant improved seed? Will you need fertilizers? Will you pay your friend's mom? Because now she will be your employee. Who will harvest? Will you look for a meal such that you take the maize for milling? Will you package? Will you sell? Whom will you sell to and at how much? When you're not around, it means it will be an individual always telling you these things, that we've bought the improved seed, that we've planted, that the prices are poor, you will struggle. That's why I want you to concentrate while you're abroad. Do not be interested in actually running a business. Be interested in probably what, sir? Now that's good, and that changes my response. If you have someone on ground, the question should be that the venture is going to do, because when you now go into the venture of cultivating, you're planting maize, you have to make sure he will be paid as an employee. But the question still is, maize takes 4 months. Maize takes 4 months for you to earn from it. How much are we going to be paying the employee to look after the maize in the 4 months? Otherwise, we will have very many stories. That's why I encourage people who are still earning very little money to enter trade rather than go into farming. You go into trade such that we ensure that every day we have an income that is entering our coffers. Mwe bakaddu mulina ofuba olaba mulina akasente akayingira buli lunaku. Otherwise, omwana avuga bod Exactly. I want you to start thinking this way, that the people who are wealthy have something that is entering every day. Every day there is an amount reported. If not every day, every week. If not every week, every month. If not every month, maybe every quarter, but a quarter is far. Naddala ng'okyali muntu muto ng'otandika ebyenfuna. The moment you let a day pass, because remember how God created us. God created us when we are expenditure beings. Every day we spend, even if you chose to stay at home today, you must have bought data, you must have charged this phone to be part of this space. You get the idea? So that is an expenditure. Now, if you've not gotten an income today, the expenditure runs the race and goes ahead of income. By the time the month ends and you do not record any income, it means you will have to borrow. Now, when you borrow, it comes with interest. That's why you see we have very many Ugandans driving cars, but they do not own the cars. The logbook is at a certain microfinance. A house is at a certain bank. Everything we have by not having, which is an oxymoron. So the idea is, when you're still young, when you want to become wealthy, be active and say, let's engage in something. If you actually lacked capital, I would encourage you to think through what you can do as traders such that you can engage in a daily thing. And if you will start with very little money, but when that thing shows promise, I will even encourage you to look for a buyer of this land such that you grow this business. When a business grows, it can buy 1,000 plots. Yet when one plot grows, it can't buy 1,000 other plots. Did you get that? Yeah, so over time, start thinking, what can we do? That's what should bother you. What can we do that allows us to earn money on a daily? Even if it's very little, it will only grow. Let me hear from the men's hub. Okay. Welcome. Okay, sir. Okay. Didn't you say laundry? You've moved from laundry to eh? Okay, the idea is simple. My encouragement is to run something which you can monitor. If you run something which you can monitor, you could even try it in Abu Dhabi and see. You could find it even has a lot of chances there because there you can monitor it. So study the environment. At the end of it all, we do not start businesses because we want to start businesses. We start businesses because we have realized there is a problem which we can solve, and we solve it at a fee. The moment there is no problem to be solved, then you will be always asking people whether they can help you with their money. So the idea is, if you realize that it's shoe cleaning which is the problem, and you realize that there is a shoe cleaning company, a shoe cleaning company next to you, first go there and try to understand how they are doing the business. What machines are they using? How much are they charging? What extra services are they giving on the shoes? So then you ask yourself, do I have that money to start? Where will I start? Because you could even find that if you started it from far, then you will have to undergo expenses in marketing to let people know you are there. It's usually good that if you're to start anything, you start it next to people who have already started. That's why you see everywhere you find a Shell, Total is there. When you come to Uganda on Kampala Road, Absa Bank shares a perimeter wall fence with Baroda. But when you go across the road, it is Tropical Africa Bank. But Tropical Africa Bank is next to Diamond Trust Bank. On the same Kampala Road, that's where you have Cairo Bank. Immediately after Cairo, you have Equity Bank. Immediately after Equity, there used to be Crane. After Crane, there used to be DFCU. After DFCU, you will see there you find Mapera. So the idea is, make sure this thing you want to start, which is maybe a laundry company, helping people with their shoes and all that, cleaning their shoes, you are not doing it very far away from other laundry cleaning companies, such that when people get tired of the other people, they can always cross over to you, and you do not have to invest in marketing to let people know that you're there. Cleaning only should. Okay, now let me also advise on that. Make sure every time you want to start something, you start with what is running as a norm. Now, people are cleaning clothes. Start with cleaning clothes. When they come with clothes, you tell them, by the way, we can also do shoes, such that they come with their clothes and shoes. Otherwise, when you only target shoes, it will take some time before the idea of shoes peaks. And remember, before the idea peaks, you're paying rent, you're having all these overheads and costs. So start with the running machine. Start with the running machine of clothes, such that you go on doubling all the other things. I've seen online that there was a question by Farm Mindset Change who said, "Can't I lose money in unit trusts due to corruption of the MMF and also due to Ugandan elections?" Okay, this is what I have to say. You need to know that in every country to run very, very well, it needs the banking system. And the banking system runs entirely on trust. So the government ensures that the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Uganda monitoring all the banks, the trust in the masses exists. The moment the banking system dies without trust from the masses, governments struggle. So that's the reason why you realize that it's so hard to actually make losses in unit trusts. It is so hard because if we are to make unit trusts, what they help us do, they use our money and lend our money to the government. So when they lend our money to the government pays interest on the money we've lent. So unit trusts give us the interest on the money we've invested. When you go to banks run fixed deposit accounts. But you realize that when the banks fix your money, they also pick the money you fixed with them and go and buy treasury bills and bonds. So when banks go and buy treasury bills and bonds, the government is interested in actually paying them back such that the system doesn't collapse. Now, you've speculated on elections and all that. The idea is, even when disaster happens, the coming government, because the coming government would want trust from the people in the banking sector, it starts by paying the people who lent money. So you do not have to worry about bills and bonds and the losses. And in any case, the people who run unit trusts are not the ones. They have a very, very strict overseer of the organization, which is called Capital Markets Authority, is overseeing every move they make. That's why you see they have bankers, they have financials, they have advisors, they have all these things around them such that they do not touch on your money recklessly. Morgan asked, I run a construction company and property management company. So what are some of other areas within this sector that I can invest for passive income? I think there are very many things if you run a construction company, people are designing at a fee. You could set up a unit which only designs. You have an architecture, you have an architect, you have a structural engineer, you have a quantity surveyor, and you get business for them to design and maybe have these drawings. Clients will pay for that. Clients will pay for that. There are very many things you could have. You could have designs. You could have designs. You could have what else? People who are in construction. You could start a hardware, such that the people who hire you to construct, you're the one who owns. You're the ones who owns the material. You say so. You have the hardware, it sells them. You have the architect, structure, quantity surveyor. They design, you earn money designing. You get business to construct. You buy from your hardware. I see you have very many options. Let me see whether there is some financial speaker said land is not an investment, gave an example and said bought land worth 1.2. After 10 years was about 2.5, but no one was willing to buy, even the one who sold it to him. That doesn't mean that it's not an investment. That is like saying you married a woman, you reached home, she did not give birth. The failure to give birth does not make her less of a woman. She just struggled to give birth. And if you look at it, it doesn't mean that every investment should actually be 100% risk proof or 100% return on investment. Even investors know that you need very sharp individuals on your team to make sure they can evaluate for you to lower your risk of loss. So if you bought land 1.2 and after 10 years you sold at 2.5, we will ask you who advised you. Did you know the prices of land in the area? Did you ask brokers? Did you ask valuers? Did you follow the trends? You could find that you did not. So the low return on investment is expected as long as you do not use advisors around you. Let me see whether I have another question. Okay. Okay. Do we have anyone who requested? Okay. I'm going to have to allow Sesanga, Charles, and Frank. Those will be the last people. I'm going to accept your requests. Please, Sesanga, ask a question. After you, I'll take Charles's question, and after you, I'll take Frank's question. Then we'll close. We'll close the show. Can I hear from Sesanga? Can you hear me? Please unmute and ask your question. Charles, can you hear me? Charles is off as a listener. Frank, can you hear me? Frank, can you hear me? Can anybody hear me for that matter? Because I've tried to. Frank. Yes, of course we are hearing you, Mr. Newton. Okay, so Mr. Sesanga, ask your question, please. Frank, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Newton.
Yes, ask your question very fast. We are running out of time.
Good evening, each and everyone, and thanks for your time. Actually, I have a question. 2 days back, like 2 years back,
okay,
we came together, I and my 4 friends, and we started a group, and we just said it raised almost 250 M so that we can buy a land. Then we divide that land. Each and everyone takes us a piece.
Okay.
So what advice could you just give us about that idea, and what are do's and non-do's? Yeah, that's my question.
All right. The question is great and it's pertinent, and over the experience I've had doing the same business, what I've realized is for you guys, you're saying you collected money, you buy, you divide, and everyone takes a piece. So you are in a business of buying to own.
Actually, each and everyone who have his idea. We have those who are just want to buy and own, and others they just want to buy and building. Others they just want to keep their money. But it's not like buying and selling. Actually, it's like an investment club, if I can say like that.
So, yeah, I think you will have to agree with people who want to grow it further, and you say that for us we are going to be buying and probably holding on for some time, and we sell when it has appreciated in value. And you've asked for the do's and don'ts. I might not be exhaustive in giving all the do's and don'ts, but what I want to let you know is make sure before you buy, you have consulted a lawyer to advise you. It's very, very possible now to buy air when it comes to land. And it will be very, very dangerous if you collect a lot of money and actually you lose it. So my encouragement is get now a team where you realize that you have a lawyer and you have brokers, and you pick this interest of buying to later sell when it has gained value. Sesanga, can you hear me? Sesanga, please, you can ask your question.
Yes, Mr. Newton, good evening.
How are you, sir?
Am I loud and clear?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Ne bw'okozesa Lulatini nja kuddamu.
I've been your follower for some good time. Highlighting how at Mr. Newton, my question, like to think about this passive income, at which level? Because now in conversation passive income, you have to invest at least business at least in Uganda, at least like 50 million to passive income to what we call passive income.
Kankukomye naawe sigenda kukkiriza kweyongerayo. Kankuweerewo answer. I'm asking you, Mr. Sesanga, do you pay for national water in your house?
Yes, we pay for national water.
Osasula sente mmeka ez'amazzi? Tugambe omwezi oguweddemu asasula mmeka? Okay. Ate amasanyalaze?
Amasanyalaze sinzi agasasula.
Naye biru etera kuba mu sente nga mmeka?
But I cannot give that exactly figure.
Okay. Ndi mukunoonya. Okay. Bw'owaguze data okubeera online wano, wasasudde sente mmeka for data internet? Thank you very much. Kati bw'oba olina expenditure ya mitwalo 2, yes, then it should be okay to have an income of emitwalo 2. Do not think that passive income should always be a lot, yet you have little things you're spending on. If I have something that can give me 5,000 a day, a month, that thing will give me 150,000, which will pay your water. Watch tegedde. Kati tulekeraawo okunyooma obuntu buno obutono obuleeta ssente ze tulowooza entono kyokka nga bwe tuzikuŋŋaanya ziwera. Would you believe that the largest taxpayer for this country last year was MTN, and they paid 500 billion? Naye nga bakyatunda airtime wa siringi 2. Would you believe that? They still sell airtime of 200, 300, 400, 500. Isn't that the price of the chapati?
That's the price of the chapati.
Buying data or siringi 10,000, isn't that price for a Rolex? So for them, they know that if we have 12 million customers, each one giving us 500 shillings per day, we can make 6 billion a day. So it means it's in the numbers. You have to think about the numbers. Even if you're doing something small, how do you increase the numbers such that you serve very many people? That small will grow into big. Don't be put into a thought process that you first look for 50 million. If you are to look for 50 million, then you will never find it. Are you there? Okay, I think our time is fast spent. I have to prepare for tomorrow's school. Brian Joy, I can't leave without allowing my doctor to say something. Let me call finally, Dr. Hilda. I would like to hear from you, Dr. Hilda. I think she's still connecting. Dr. Hilda. Dr. Hilda, can you hear me? Please unmute.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Newton, and we'll chat more on WhatsApp. I am back online now.
Okay.
And I'm grateful that when I came back online,
yes,
just around the time I came back online, I saw your post on your status. So that is how I managed to join.
Okay.
Thank you so much for the insights you have given,
okay,
and even for all the speakers that I have given, asked questions. They have been very enlightening.
Okay.
Now, for me as an academic,
yes,
I've had all these ideas. I even go and look for the place. I want to rent here. I want to start this. But then there's always this issue of who am I going to manage?
Yes.
And that is always the fear that I have held back, and I end up eating the money. So then I look back 3 months after, I've eaten the money, and genuinely eaten the money, not misused it, but used it for basic needs. And,
yes.
But then I'm thinking, I had put this money and taken a risk to say, let me trust somebody. Like, how much trust, how much risk can I take in terms of, I have done my due diligence, but there's that fear holding me back. This person is going to not do the work well. What do I do? And that is, I think, a representation of many academics or many scholars who find that they are afraid to delegate,
yes,
delegate work
yes,
or business to somebody else. Yet it is very important. What you're saying is okay. If I can get 200 at the end of the month, it will pay my water bill, it will pay my electricity bill. It makes a lot of sense. So
yes. Now, thank you very much, Doctor, for the question. First of all, as an academic, I pray that you are ensuring that you're making some earnings from a side income, which would be writing, whereby people are buying your content. That is the very first side income I usually advise academics to have. An academic, you have a book, you have a manual people following, and they are paying in some money, because at least when you write, when you collect your thought process, there you are in control. Now, when we go to managing really becomes tricky, because it's not always going to be very clear cut that you will land on someone who is correct, going to do the things as you expect them. Because even if you hired someone who is trustworthy, business has its own ways that will make it hard for a trustworthy individual to operate. Let me give you an example. A person might be trustworthy and you give them to manage, but you could find the trustworthiness has worked in when they receive the money and they give you the money, but they might be poor at marketing, poor at negotiating, and they will negotiate from a losing point every time they negotiate. So you would still lose money. Now, the advice I would give, there are vehicles which you can choose that are not necessarily going to operate as businesses where you need someone to manage. For example, if you got money and say you put it in a unit trust, I usually tell people that when you put money in a unit trust, you will cross over 2 zeros. So if you put 1 million, approximately you will earn 10,000 per month. If you put 20 million, when you put 20 million, you cross over 2 zeros. So if you cross over 2 zeros, 20 million will give you 200K per month from a unit trust. If you do not do that, then you could go into saying you approach people who are good in real estate and you start putting money in real estate, where you buy land, you make sure it's genuine land, you make sure it's in a way protected. You see, the beauty of buying land would be that you're not going to monitor it every day. There are some plots of mine which I have and I take a full year without checking on them. I could check on them maybe twice a year or once a year. I just go there. I can find someone who is growing something from there and they keep on giving me reports. They grow their maize, they grow these crops that do not take long. But as they grow, they are keeping for me the land. I go and check on the land once or twice a year. So there is no actual involvement of the land. But before you wake up, they have constructed a road near where you bought the land. Someone has built next to you, and the land exponentially gains capital gains. Gains that value we call capital gains. So that's why you hear people saying, I bought that land 13 million. Now it's 25 million. It's because they speculated well when they were buying land. So if you're not a person who is going to be managing people, looking after people, and all the headache that comes, then you have to cross over and be an investor, where you say, I'm going to manage my money, but I'll be saving my money and putting in things that do not require a lot of involvement. Unit trusts, despite the fact that they give very low, they do not require any involvement. Land, when you buy it, doesn't require any involvement. And the reason I'm giving you these things, it's because land is here to stay. Land is here to stay. In any lens we look at it, it is here to stay. It only will appreciate in value if you buy it strategically. If you buy land strategically. Friends, stop buying land using your knowledge. Use people who are in the business of selling land such that they can help you obtain pieces of land strategically. Those people who are people who are making a lot of money in real estate, they are not just buying any land. They read the news and they realize so and so is going to open up something, doing this, there is a road coming. Then that's where they buy. That's where they open an estate. Their speculation helps them gain capital gains. So for people who do not have the ability to monitor others, the ability to start up businesses, you can opt for these things. Doctor will talk more via WhatsApp. And I think today we have served our very great purpose of talking to the people. I see that Mulamuzi had requested. I think I'll take him finally, such that I close. I usually feel bad when someone requests and they don't speak. So, Mr. Mulamuzi, if you can hear me, please ask your question and I'll finish with it.